So I just realized when I almost finished the webinar, the Yizkor Moment webinar, that I didn't press record. So I'm going to go over this approach to the Yizkor Moment now, right after, because I have it fresh and I have my notes. So Yizkor is a moment for sharing memories, and we're going to look into that from that perspective, from the intentionality, from the kavanah perspective, so that we can bring it to families and bring those memories alive. Why do we do this? I always love starting with why. Why celebrating? Why providing a moment for the parents and the grandparents and maybe the children to share the memories of those who passed and we miss? It is because we carry memories with us as we live. And sharing means sharing also the load, but also means that memories stay alive, remain alive when they are remembered. So when we share those memories, we share the stories, and those memories stay alive. Yizkor has a minhag, has a custom, has a tradition that we leave the room. Those who haven't lost a parent, a grandparent, a spouse, a child, leave the room during Yizkor. And the ones who remain are those who have lost those who I mentioned before. We're going to look at that minhag and create another minhag. We're not replacing, if you don't want to replace, but we are saying, as that custom, as that tradition became it, what if we create a different minhag for families to share the memories of those who passed? So what is also important to know, that a minhag is not related to halacha, it's not related to law. It is a tradition, like standing up during the lachadodi and turning and facing the door and opening the doors. Those are traditions. So that sometimes, not in the case of lachadodi, but came out of superstition. So facing this, knowing this, we're going to immerse ourselves into a moment where generations can share, can stay together for sharing moments and memories. Children need to be in the presence of grown-ups, not only when the grown-ups are okay, not only when the grown-ups are emotionally composed, but with the vulnerability that grown-ups bring and embody and live and experience. That is why I believe that a moment like this is necessary. I always start with why. Why am I providing a space for families to share their memories? So now that I have this why very clear, I'm going to jump with you into the what. What we are going to do is create an environment where those memories can be shared, but not into a somber, sad environment, but an environment where sadness, joy, laughter, dancing, crying could happen, are part of what happens when you remember. When you remember, when you put together the memories of people that you love. Let's also be aware that this Yizkor that we are envisioning for 2020 is happening within the context of a pandemic, right? We're already in very distressed moments. We're already, with a lot of uncertainty. We are hearing a lot about deaths, about how many cases and how many people died. Kids and grown-ups, they have globally this idea of losing those we love, and not even losing them, but not being able to be with them, to bury them in many cases. I'm also thinking about the idea of missing. I am so grateful and I'm so glad, and I know I'm privileged to have my parents alive, but I don't have them with me. They're in Argentina, I'm in Costa Rica, I have my kids in other parts of the world, in the States, in Israel. I miss them. So the act of missing is very active in this moment. So let's be aware of that when we design, when we bring ourselves into an experience like this. Because what I'm going to share with you is an activity. It's not a program, it's an experience. It's a chavaya. An activity means that it will activate things, that it's not a passive thing. It's not about remembering, but is remembering itself. I'm looking at my notes. We could also talk about it as a peula, as I said, as an activity, but now in Hebrew. I shared with the group earlier today that I remember hearing stories from my grandmother that left Romania going to Argentina the past century, and talking about all the family members that she lost. Then the war came and they perished. And I remember listening, the stories that my grandmother, my maternal grandmother, spoke about and shared with me about her aunts, Leah and Anna. Not only that I heard about them, but I also know that my mother was named after them. My grandmother put together Leah and Anna and called my mother Liana. So it's not that I didn't hear about them, but because we didn't, as secular Jews, didn't go to synagogue, didn't have the time and the context and the ritual to share those memories and dive into them and ask more. I always heard what she wanted to tell me, but not in a way that could bring my feelings into hers. And I was very close to her. So what if we created a bonfire of memories? A bonfire of memories could be a Yizkor moment. And this Yizkor moment could be part of other moments. You could put it together. In case you're going to do just a Yizkor moment, that you can even rename it, okay? You could give it another name. You could call it a bonfire of memories. Let's remember. You can find a title so it doesn't, if it has a conflict with what the Yizkor that you do with your congregation if you are in a synagogue. Let's look at the bonfire of memories. This is what we are going to look into. A bonfire, if we think of a bonfire, we think of many things. We think of what we need to create a bonfire. We need wood, we need straws, we need matches. We might need flashlights to go into a bonfire. There's togetherness, there's a circle, there's a setup, right? So let's look at the bonfire that we're going to do together to share memories. And here is a bonfire of memories that I put together to show you one way that you could do. You could tell your families to bring a carpet, to make it beautiful. It's like a bama. It's like an altar as well, right? So I brought flowers to make it beautiful. I brought I brought a carpet. I brought pictures of my loved ones that are no longer with us. I brought artifacts. I brought the coffee pot of Marcelo's grandmother. I even brought a towel that was my grandparents that I kept. I brought, I brought, things that belonged to my grandmother. I brought Kleenex because everything you put here speaks about an action, right? If you bring Kleenex, means that you might cry. That you might cry, and that doesn't mean that we cannot move on and be happy afterwards. There are tears of joy. I brought a candle that we lit at the beginning of our session today. I brought cushions. We might need to dim the lights. We can ask families to bring flashlights, and have the room lit by flashlights. What is important is that the creation of a bonfire is not a task for grown-ups only, but it is for everybody in the family. This could be part of a scavenger hunt that families could do right before the memorial service, right before this Yizkor service, or weeks or a month before during Elul, depending on how you want to treat this, right? So, and there is the Kaddish that I shared with you earlier that has an English transliteration and translation. And the translation fits the beat that the Kaddish has, because there is a rap within the Kaddish. So let me share with you a few things that I think are important to create a Yizkor moment. And I'm going to move my chair. One thing is that this is a family event. This is not a kids program. So if the families are in the same house, that they're already interacting with grandparents, or if the grandparents are far away, they need to be engaged somehow, online or here. So one thing that you could do if you want to prepare the families for this moment is to send them kind of a toolkit. And this should be optional. Everything should be optional. This is a time where families are overwhelmed with tasks and shoulds. So there's no disappointment if they didn't do this ahead of time, okay? This is important, and it came up during the workshop when we were live. They could build this during the Yizkor moment with you. You could ask people to go and look for pictures. Nobody can upset you for not being ready. The most important thing is that people show up, okay? This is really, really important. So there is before, there is the actual celebration, and there is the after. The before is you can tell people what to bring. You can send them a playlist of songs that you can ask them for them to put together a playlist of the songs that remind them of those they miss. You can ask them to bring everything that I told you before. You can ask them to get, like pebbles in pouches that will be rededicated when the names of the people you miss and you remember are said out loud. You can ask them to even cook before Yom Kippur. They could cook a recipe of, of your favorite grandmother's recipe and eat it, as someone in the workshop said, at the break the fast. Anything that brings memories alive. So there are three movements that I see in an experience like this, and I call them movements and I don't call them chapters because they're all connected. The first is we gather on Zoom. And each family is seated in their bonfire. whatever bonfire they created. So everybody's on Zoom, also in their bonfires. And you might want to ask people to put the cameras in place so that they can show their bonfire somehow. Okay? And they're all muted. And you welcome them, and maybe there's a song that you want to use as an opening. And here we go into something very important, that is collaboration. We have so many talents. Everybody has so many talents, but we might not all be musical, or we might not be good storytellers, or we might even want to be not to be the only leaders. So even if you could sing, maybe there's someone in your community who could sing an opening song that could set the tone. For example, there is a beautiful song, For Good, from Wicked, or Somewhere Over the Rainbow, or Oifen Pripachik, or any other song that it's important. Let me put a pause here and highlight something that I always said and say in my workshops. There's a statement that I am very strong and certain about. You don't risk the dynamic of a group for the sake of a song, for the sake of a story, for the sake of a poem. If you feel you're losing your people, you shorten the song, you shorten the story, you shorten the poem. The most important thing is not what you have planned, but what people are doing and feeling and ready for. So if a song has too many verses, shorten it. The most important thing is that you're setting the tone, not that you're singing the song. Yes? So there's an opening, there's a welcome. You ask people to wave, to interact, ask them how they're doing. Make it very personal and look into the camera. Don't think about the next. Be completely and fully ready to be present. Movement 1 then is a song, is introducing yourself if you haven't, is asking people to say, in signs, where they are in the world. Movement 2, you invite families to go among themselves and share the memories of those they love and miss. So you remain online, everybody's muted, they remain online so you can see everybody, but they are on their own. And they could be talking, they could be hugging, they could be dancing. And this is important that you'd say this in the beginning of movement 1, You choose how to share the memories. If it's a dance, if it's a joke, I want to make sure that you're engaged, that you're really, really, really remembering. Movement 2, as I said, is about them sharing among themselves. Movement 2 ends with a physical closure. If this is a family that feels like hugging themselves, they hug themselves. There has to be a closure in movement 2. If grandparents are somewhere in the world and they are not in the same room, they could have shared some things online before or offline, but they could also show themselves things. Like they could be interacting and have their WhatsApps on because they won't be able to listen to themselves through the screen. What else? It's important to make a closure of movement 2. That could be maybe 10 minutes of sharing. And you call them, you bring them back to the screen. And you bring them back to the screen to say the Kaddish. And as you know, we stand up for saying the Kaddish. And in many congregations, everybody who's present says Kaddish. And I think that for this time, everybody should stand up if they can. So what if standing up is not done in automatic pilot, like, so please rise? What if the kids held grown-ups' hands and bring them up and help them stand, like honoring their memories? What if we invited all the children that are there with their grown-ups to first stand up, to hold your grown-ups' hands, and make sure that they stand up with your help. So we're putting the highlight in the action of standing up, in the transition of embodying the Kaddish. And someone in the community has to lead the Kaddish. So you might want to also invite someone in your community to lead it. And you do it before this happens. You can do it on the spot. You can choose to do it yourself. But look for ways where your community is active and feels needed and feels seen. So everybody's standing up with the help of the kids. You ask all the children and everybody to hold pictures close to their hearts and showing them. There might be someone that wants to sing the El Maleh Rachamim, a list of the names of people who perished because of acts of hatred. If Black Lives Matter is something that is part of your call in your community, or people that died, because of anti-Semitism or any injustice, you choose. Don't remove kids from the emotions that missing brings. They need to practice empathy. They need to, and they can only practice in real time. What else? Finish this memorial, this remembering gathering with a melody, with a nigun that you sing. Maybe it's a child that sings a song, and ask everybody to bring their, a picture of an artifact or something, closer to the camera. You can even unmute everybody and let them say things, wishes or the names out loud, or create chaos. Create some chaos. Don't be afraid. The best things, the best rituals come from the unexpected. And some unexpected, beautiful, deep things could happen when you unmute people, when you unleash people's creativity and feelings. So, a few things. This Yizkor moment could happen when you decide to happen. Just schedule it at a time that, depending on the age of the kids in the families that you're going to be, leading, is good for them. What else? It's important. This moment could be together with other moments. Some people in the workshop said that they might be doing it on Shabbat, the Shabbat before the holiday starts. I think Yom Kippur starts on a Sunday. Don't make this a program, which means if people didn't have the time, didn't want to prepare for this, they can prepare on the spot. And someone in the workshop asked me, what if we have families that have prepared and some that haven't? So I said, let the families that prepared show them what they prepared, and, encourage them to look for things around the house, pictures, Kleenex, flowers, food, recipes, not food because it's Yom Kippur, if you're doing it on Yom Kippur, and let them, let them send them. Let them send the other families to put together this experience. This is a ritual that can grow with your community. Don't try to put everything and do everything during this if this is the first time you're doing it. You will see that the next years, if this went well and people wanted more, there will be expectations, there will be excitement for sharing, there will be a sense of space, a safe space that is built. One thing that I would highly recommend, send them before these experience, send your family's list of words that express feelings. You could use a moment like this and moments like we've been looking at as a pretext for people to share their feelings and know different words to express their feelings. So I will email you a list of words that you can find online for kids and grown-ups to name their feelings. I hope this is inspiring and that we meet again for more moments for families to get together meaningfully, soulfully, and for real.
Um, Thinking about, obviously, traditionally, Yizkor happens on Yom Kippur, but if we may not have it actually on Yom Kippur, what would be an intentional timing for families? And the other is, something I'm very conscious of in this moment is, first of all, I feel very overwhelmed trying to take care of three kids, and I'm a rabbi of a community and just attend to my own body and soul. And I know that other parents feel the same way. And so I'm nervous about just giving parents, of course, it's a family activity, but more and more to do. And they desperately want experiences like this, but feel overwhelmed by the preparatory work. So, can you just say a bit about how we prepare people without overwhelming them?
Thank you for the question. Jenny, I think about preparation because I think that people want to hear that there is a preparation. The preparation can happen during the moment as well. In fact, I think there's something very playful that takes the overthinking and am I doing the right thing? So if you feel that that is something that you want to embrace, and I agree with you that parents are overwhelmed, you could do that as part of the Yizkor. So you gather everybody, you ask them to have a mat, to just have a mat, a candle, and then it becomes more like a scavenger hunt on the go, and you could see people going for things, getting on and off the Zoom. Yes, I agree with you. I think that the priority is wellness. For anything we're doing, the priority is the wellness of the families, the wellness of ourselves too. In case you wanted to be more programmatic or give a choice, if you happen to want to do this, this is what you could do.
Beautiful. I love that. And I like the idea of giving options. These are things you may want to gather as a family if you have time. If not, no problem. We'll create it together.
Of course, because I agree with this notion that more is not better. I'm giving you the option of looking at the before as as expanding it, but you don't have to do it as a should. Are you there? Are you
We
there?
lost you for a moment.
I'm
We
sorry.
lost you for just a
I'm
minute.
sorry.
We're
No,
here.
what I'm saying is I opened the before as something to do during, but always as an option. Like,
I'm
no,
thinking about
no
like
more
there will be
shoes.
some families who will, if you do a toolkit ahead of time, you give them the items, they will read everything, they will do it. And then there are families who, just manage to get to the Zoom and they don't have anything together. You don't want to make them feel bad, but what do you do with I guess you could have the families, you want to give everybody enough time, but here are these families who are sitting there ready. They've got it all put together, and now you have to ask families to go get all their things. What do you have the families do who are ready?
So I work with whatever I have there. I have families that were prepared and some that don't. Let the ones that were prepared show the ones that were not prepared what they could look for.
Mm.
Give them the leadership role. You know, the most important thing is to look into your frustrations, to look into your expectations. Nobody can frustrate you. There's nothing that could be frustrating for you. There shouldn't, because everybody's doing whatever they can. And you should honor that they even showed up. So if some people had the chance, wanted, I don't know, maybe they felt even pushed to do it and they didn't want to do it, but they did it. Like, free them and don't get upset for anything that could happen. What I would only take care is that nobody's inappropriate. That there's some things that we need to make sure that some decor in a way. But yeah, have I responded to your? Thank you.
And what about timing, Karina? Timing?
I,
Timing, like
I,
where?
I said around 45 minutes, the longest, Gail.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think.
No,
And like
I think the
day,
question is more like when in the
when in
flow
this,
of the holidays.
yeah.
It really depends on you. I think that it's good to have this in a moment where they are already a little bit into the holidays. Like if it's on Yom Kippur, I don't know how you're going to handle, your online activities, but I think they have to have a sense of holiday already. So the morning of Yom Kippur. Think also the ages. There's nap time for some ages, so you don't want them to miss this. You don't want to have this at times where they are having lunch or dinner, or so find a time where they will be comfortable doing it. If you're not doing halachically, you can choose. Yes, Gail.
Just a suggestion that I'm starting to think, because I've been thinking about this, and then I have a question also. We've been talking about having things happening essentially from like Elul through the end of Yom Kippur. But so I was thinking about this maybe being like the family service, the Shabbat between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, especially because Yom Kippur starts Sunday night. So it's like kind of like leading into the holiday, and it's after Rosh Hashanah, but it's the weekend, so people can like focus maybe more than they usually would. The candle lighting I'd have to figure out, but otherwise it feels like maybe a good compromise.
Let me
I wanted
let me react to that, because
oh,
I'm
please.
taking that as a also as a question, right? Because we don't know
Right.
what's the best time in many ways. What I like is not to pretend. I don't like the pretend. I don't like in general the how do you say, the model Seder, you know?
Yeah.
That's my only concern about not having that during Yom Kippur. That is my only concern.
Right. I'm aware of like there's also like the Al Khet moment and like those sorts of things. And if I'm trying to think about what needs to go on the day and the attention span and how much screen time, I think there's a way of framing it as we prepare to enter Yom Kippur, who will we be thinking about tomorrow night? Right. Because again, because it just happens to be the day before, it still feels like if we acknowledge like doesn't feel so disconnected. Like it's not Rosh Elul, which would feel a little foreign, you know, for me at least.
You know best. You know.
But I hear what you're saying. Also, model seders are.
Yes, and another thing that I would say, this doesn't have to be a 45-minute experience. You could bring it together with another moment, you know, with the El Ched moment. With you, it's not that if you don't do 45 minutes, you don't. You know, this bonfire could help for so many other things. You know, so don't think that if you don't carve 45 minutes of a Yizkor moment, there's no Yizkor moment with your families. You could have this in 15 minutes and put it together with other moments during Yom Kippur or whenever. That is a good thing that you brought it up. Gil, you have a question?
Yeah, I did. I wanted to ask.
We're passing time. Yes, go.
Yeah, and I did. Okay.
Fine.
Would you recommend that if that we don't engage in this ritual with our own families while we are facilitating it for others? I couldn't quite catch like what if you had a preference based on how you were explaining it in the moment.
No, it's a great. I think that if you have a family and you will do it together with them.
Okay.
Do it. But if you happen not to have your family because
Okay,
you are
just
leading
the
a
whole
family, look, sit, be there,
Okay.
absorb. Yeah, because it's all pieces of information that you can use afterwards, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Anything else? I hope there are more things to, and I want to be cautious. Yes, Kever Avot for families. Yes. I want to thank you. Seth, you wanted to say something. I see you unmuted.
I was just thinking about two thoughts. One of, are there certain things to pay attention to as we're setting it up this year so that we can run this again year after year? But I think that maybe as the kids are growing and changing, the questions and the discussions will probably change as well, naturally. But I also think there's a nice opportunity. It's not going to be this year, but I could imagine having like one of the carpeted auditorium spaces in my synagogue just be totally open, and people could bring in all of these things, like bring in a blanket with all of these objects, and you can walk around and be warmed by everyone's bonfire. It's interesting. It's really nice, Karina. Thank you.
My pleasure. One of the most beautiful things that happened to me was that I could stay for 10 years at the 92nd Street Y doing this. And the second year and the third year, the expectations towards this, the grandparents that started coming, that you build it with your community. That's why I said don't try to put everything the first time that you're doing it. Do a bit, introduce it with gloves, white gloves for the soul. Thank you. Thank you so much. Be well. I hope to see you on Monday for the shofar if you signed up. Shofar moment. Thank you.